This is Britain's newsroom on GB News. Conservative MP Will Wragg, he has now admitted to being the person who handed out personal phone numbers of colleagues to a man that he met on a gay dating app. It's been dubbed the honey trap sext scandal. So the Hazel Grove MP said he provided the details after sending intimate pictures of himself to the user. Now, Leicestershire Police, they're investigating it as a cyber attack. Last year, William spoke to Gloria Di Piero on GB News. Here he is.
Do you think the political environment, the nature of our politics, does it exacerbate or amplify your mental health?
All life in different occupations have their challenges, which can, there's nothing unique to politicians. I think there's something quite unique to a certain pressurised environment in the political world, but that can be in other public-facing roles and roles of leadership as well, where the expectation, of course, is that you will remain impermeably strong and set an example to others. So I think you will find it in different walks of life. I wouldn't necessarily say that politics is conducive to having your mind in a happy sense of equilibrium all of the time, though.
Well, it definitely isn't today. So we're talking now to the man who broke this story about Will Wragg, the chief political correspondent at The Times, Aubrey Allegretti. Good morning to you, Aubrey. Just remind our viewers the backstory to this and how William has now confessed, effectively, that he played a huge part in it.
So really for the last 24, 48 hours, ever since a report broke on the Politico website, there has been speculation about who was behind these mysterious messages that were sent, sometimes from a person calling themselves Charlie, sometimes from a person calling themselves Abby, to some quite senior MPs, and engaging them in sort of chatty, flirtatious conversation, then trying to send and ask for back explicit images from these MPs. And that's obviously been going on for the last few days, but the messages themselves were sent over the course of the last few weeks, and actually a lot of MPs have been really nervous, wondering what's going on, what's happening. So when I had spoken to some of the victims and they had thought that Will Wragg was involved in some way, I confronted him yesterday afternoon, and he confessed to having passed along the messages, the phone numbers to this person who he met on a gay dating app. He says that he never met this person. They were due to go for drinks, but the person never shows. And he's obviously expressed a huge amount of remorse for what he's done, because he knows how much he's let down his fellow MPs.
So just to be clear, so the victims suspected that Will Wragg was somehow involved. Do you have any idea why, Aubrey?
So in at least one of the cases, the MP continued exchanging messages with the sort of unknown third-party person and was asking them kind of how they knew them. And the person who called themselves Charlie said that they used to be an intern for Will Wragg. Right. And that sparked some alarm bells. The MP then went to Will Wragg and said, "This person says he knows you, is that right?" And William initially said, "Yes, that's correct. He didn't work for me, but I do know him and he can be a bit gregarious." And then Will Wragg's story seemed to change when the MP went back to them and asked, "Are you sure you know this guy? Because he's sending me some very strange stuff." William said he got confused and actually he didn't know this person. But that's where the sort of initial trail of all this led back to him.
So, Aubrey, two further MPs sent this person or this group explicit pictures. Have you any idea how common that is in Parliament amongst politicians? I mean, it seems extraordinary that one MP would do it, let alone two others, and whoever knows how many else more.
We don't really know their motivations, but certainly I think in Will Wragg's case, he probably felt a sense of kind of shame, as did some of the other victims, which kind of kept all of this really secret and under wraps. And there are lots of MPs I spoke to who just said, why didn't William go to the police? If he felt like he was being blackmailed, he should have, refused and rebuffed this person's demands, because there are laws to sort of tackle against that. So I think the fact that all of these people have sort of been suffering in silence to a degree for some time, including obviously the victims who didn't sort of necessarily want to tell anyone that they had been approached by this person, or go to the authorities or to the House of Commons services or to their party whips. All of this was really under wraps until they started sort of joining the dots together in the last few days.
They must be furious with William Wragg at this point. It's all very well engaging in some online exchanges with somebody that he's met on a dating app and doing it himself, fine. Whatever anybody does in the privacy of their own house is not my business. However, to then hand over colleagues' phone numbers so that they can also be entrapped, that's got to be a resignable offence.
There is huge amounts of anger amongst some of the MPs who were victims of this. I mean, one of them I spoke to basically said, when we were starting to join the dots, it felt as though we, as gay men working in Parliament, were somehow being targeted, and we were really fearing for our safety. So that hopefully goes some way to explain the kind of strength of feeling amongst the victims. It seems as though the Conservative Party isn't going to withdraw the whip from William Wragg, so it's recess at the moment. He is obviously not in Parliament and therefore won't necessarily kind of face any questions about this in the immediate future. But the police investigation into this incident of malicious communications is ongoing. I suspect once that ends, there then might be further investigations by the Parliamentary Standards Commissioner into whether or not he's brought Parliament into disrepute.
There was a lot of speculation yesterday. Ian Duncan-Smith as well came out and thought this was a Russian hacker, that there was a political motivation behind it. Do we have any evidence of that, Aubrey? Or is it just mischief by someone that he's met on a gay dating app?
Not so far. I mean, it's not uncommon, of course, for kind of hostile countries or their spy agencies to try and gather compromat on MPs. That is a story almost as old as time. I think in this case, that some of the victims I spoke to didn't feel they were engaging with with somebody with the apparatus of a big state foreign power behind them, because when they threatened to go to the police, this person kind of clammed up. It seemed to suggest they realised they'd got in far too deep, and the victim sort of felt that if you were a sort of spy agency for a rival country, that going to the police probably wouldn't kind of deter you too much. This may have just been one individual or maybe one or two individuals acting alone.
Aubrey, I know civil servants get training that kind of teaches them to beware of blackmail and bribery stings, but are MPs not briefed on this kind of thing? It seems incredible to me that William Wragg would, A, send explicit pictures to a stranger anyway, when he hadn't met them and doesn't really know who they are, but B, also give away a trove of his colleagues' details as well. I mean, has he not been through any sort of training about this?
Well, on point A, I mean, again, as we said, what he does in his private life is completely up to him. But on point B, yes, there is certainly a huge amount of training, guidance given to MPs and everyone who works across the parliamentary estate, including even some of the political journalists, because there is such a wariness about how exposed we all potentially could be, and the sort of threats against Parliament as an institution. But I think the issue is you can provide all of the sort of support, training and guidance that you like. If somebody commits a grave mistake or error of judgment or does something wrong on their own sort of choice, then there's nothing that can be done to guard against that.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning. That was Aubrey Allegretti there, the chief political correspondent at The Times, who broke the story about William Wragg being the original source of these numbers. Thanks, Aubrey.
Aubrey says that it's his private life and it's up to him, and you mentioned that as well. Yes, I agree. However, when you're an MP, I just don't think you should be sending nude pictures to someone you've clearly never met. If you've met someone and you can verify who you're speaking to on the other end of that phone number, fine, fill your boots, do what you want. But he's never met this person. Yeah. Surely, I mean, it just...
Shocking judgment. I mean, I think if you're an MP, but also it doesn't really matter what, if you're a teacher, if you're a doctor, anybody, really, the advice is don't send naked pictures of yourself to someone you've never met. I mean, mind blown at how simple advice that would appear to be in 2024.
But not only that, he then went and gave away all his colleagues' phone numbers. It just seems extraordinary. I feel sorry for the guy, but also it's just very, very slack.
It's a developing story. We're going to be watching that.